Press play.
Replay, replay, replay.
You're watching Play Replay with Async. Today I want to talk about Transformers, specifically the Transformer movies. And I'm not going to talk about the movies that Michael Bay did and all these other guys are doing. I'm going to talk about what I would do if I was going to make them. Because I'm not a fan of the movies in general. The Transformer movies are just not my thing. So I'm just going to give my view of how I would do it. Not like I'm anybody special, but I just wanted to give my idea for how I would do a Transformers franchise instead of doing it the way they are doing it now and kind of piecing things together and not really keeping good canon for the most part. So what I would do to start off with is I would show Cybertron. I would stick to what they did in the Bumblebee movie, because they did a great job in the Bumblebee movie when they did the Cybertron sequence. That whole thing, I don't know of any Transformer fans that didn't really like that. I don't understand how they would not like that. That was perfect. All the Transformers looked like they should. Nobody said, oh, they should have made them look a little bit more like sharp-edged metal or whatever like they did in the Bay movies. No, nobody said that. Everyone watched it and said, wow, this is amazing. People were sitting on the edge of the seat going, wow, this is actually Optimus Prime, acting like Optimus Prime. And these are the Seekers chasing the Autobots down. Everything. It was just cool. And even Bumblebee's vehicle form was kind of cool, I thought. I don't really care for the movie Bumblebee because he looks like he's got something in his mouth like the whole time, like this wrong, like a ball in his mouth or something. It just looks dumb to me. He should have a mouth and he should have a voice and he should never lose that voice. I don't know why he had to lose his voice. It just boggles my mind that a character like Bumblebee would be the character that you take away his voice when he actually talks a lot in the cartoons and stuff. I just never understood why you would do that. But okay. So the voice, by the way, of Bumblebee in the Bumblebee movie, in the beginning when you hear his voice, I thought that was a good voice for him. That was actually a pretty good voice. All of the voices for all those Cybertronian characters, Optimus Prime, of course, Peter Cullen voice, that's perfect. In my version of a Transformers movie, I would start off with Cybertron and kind of do similar to what they did with that, because there's really nothing wrong with that. And have the war. I would make that sequence go a little bit longer, though, I think, because it was only like maybe 2 minutes before we were watching Bumblebee blast off, and I even thought that part was kind of a little stupid because they all were on a ship together when they crashed. You know, most of the Autobots in that main group were all together in the Ark when they crashed on Earth in the original cartoon and everything. So to watch Bumblebee just fly off into space in a little shuttle, that's like, okay. It seems weird that all of the Autobots are just going to fly off in little shuttles instead of being together. But okay, whatever. That's how they did it. Fine. That's how they did it. So for me, I would have a battle sequence on Cybertron. Megatron would be there. Soundwave, Shockwave, Starscream, Thundercracker, Skywarp, Rumble, Frenzy, Ravage, Laserbeak. All these characters would be there right away in the first sequence. You get to see all of these characters. They actually would look like they actually do. They would look more realistic, but they would look like the G1 characters in reality, like they did in the Cybertron sequence in the Bumblebee movie. And they would transform into whatever they transform on Cybertron, whatever. I think Bumblebee would turn into the little hover saucer thing, though, because I thought that was cool in the G1 cartoon in the first episode when Bumblebee and Wheeljack were looking for Energon, and they had alternate Transformer like Cybertron forms, which is kind of cool. So I would just kind of take whatever they had and just make it a little more realistic and maybe change up a little bit of stuff on it, but not much. just like the Tetrajets or whatever. I'd make them look like they did in the cartoon, just change up a little couple things on it to make it more realistic, I guess. I would have that whole battle sequence, and then I would go from the battle sequence to the Autobots escaping, basically, and then Prime saying, we need to launch the Ark now. And he'd get into the ship, and he'd command like a real Optimus Prime would, and he would just basically say, we need to go go to this planet that we found or whatever that has energy, and it's a good place to get away. So of course you'd see them blast off, and then you'd see Megatron would have, I would have Laserbeak spying like he did in the cartoon, and Laserbeak would come back and basically tell Soundwave, and they would basically get their info, and then Megatron would go after them. And then you'd see them start battling basically Space Bridge. Everything that's exactly the same like the cartoon, just make it real. So you'd have a battle on their ships where they get locked together with a space bridge, and Megatron boards their ship when they're out in space. And then we'd have this battle, and then something would happen or whatever, and then they would basically be, or like, I would have like Optimus Prime like open a space, whatever, a space bridge in space or whatever, launching them to the planet, and then have Megatron try to go in and just kind of not be able to because it closes, and Megatron would basically look at his computers and basically go, where did they go or whatever, and then he'd get some kind of tracking information off of, just say he put a tracker chip on the ship or whatever, or who knows. And then I'm just trying to work it out in my head, like how they would do that. But he'd end up going through another one, and he'd get there, and then he would basically see them right before they get to the planet, and then they'd basically lock in battle again, and then the Autobots would blast their ship, and then they would go off and fly away separate from where the Autobots are. But the Autobot ship would be damaged pretty badly, and then they would crash into the mountain, and Megatron would crash into the sea, making it exactly like the G1 cartoon. And I'm not saying everything has to be perfectly G1, but imagine this in more of a realistic looking Transformers, realistic ships. But now you got a ship, and you have a lot of Transformers then to pick from once you get to Earth. Instead of having them just fall in like little separate ships, you never knew who's going to show up in the movie. Oh, this guy's in this movie, and then the next movie he's not there, and there's another one that's like that, but not that one. It's like, make it, I want canon, So what I would have is they'd crash, whoever, and then they'd basically be brought back somehow, some way or another. I don't know if I would do it to where they crash in basically like the prehistoric times, because I think that would just be, it's just an extra thing, because the world is going to change a lot from that point. I would just have them crash in today's time period, so there's a change for you that's not G1. Okay, so I would have them crash, and then basically Megatron would be in the sea, and everything would be just completely just messed up on their computers, their ship, everything, so that they'd have to worry about their own selves and not worry about Optimus Prime so much, because they're trying to get some kind of, something to work, and especially because they're under the ocean. So now they got issues with that, I don't know if the pressure of the water would have a problem on their ship, I don't know. So the Autobots are in the side of a mountain, and then what I would have is, I would have Spike and Sparkplug, the two humans, Sam Witwicky or whatever, and basically I don't know if I'd call him Sam Witwicky, but their nicknames would be Spike and Sparkplug. I would just keep it, and that's their nicknames, and they basically are, I would have them be like mechanics or some kind of I don't know, but basically they live out in the woods next to this mountain or whatever, where this, I think it's Mount Hillary, anyway, I think that's where the Autobots crash, anyway, and I would have them see it when they're driving down the road and there's like nobody out there. They're like off the grid almost, out in the middle of nowhere. And they're mechanics because they work on cars or whatever. And I would just keep that because of Spike and spark plug, that kind of spark plug, like mechanic, you know. I know that they worked on an oil rig in the cartoon originally. See, I'm changing things, so it's not G1 so much. But anyway, and then they'd see it, and then they'd go toward it or whatever, and then whatever. And then at the same time, though, you got to have, I would imagine that you'd have the government seeing something crash into the earth, right? Like on a radar. But we'll leave the government basically out of it for a while. So Spike and Sparkplug basically end up going there, and they basically see the ship in its destroyed kind of way, and they manage to, you know, there's probably some comedy like this. Are you kidding me? This is a UFO, you know? And then they go inside and they see the Autobots just laying all over the place, and they look like they're like sparking and they're all messed up because of the crash and everything. And they would basically bump like Teletran 1, or Spike will press a button or something when he goes in there, and Teletran 1 will start repairing the Autobots immediately. So now we're kind of like the G1 show, you know. And what would happen is Teletran 1 would realize that they're on Earth now, they're not on another planet. So then it'll send out its radar to basically pick up what would fit for Transformer modes, like Autobots vehicle forms. So then they do that, and now the whole time you're going to be getting the idea that the Decepticons are doing the same. And yes, the Decepticons would send up a satellite basically out of the water, and they would scan things, but they would scan more I would say more violent, militant type of vehicles to go with them. So you'd get that whole thing with their basically everyone. And also I would say that I would have the Decepticons, of course, they're not knocked out or whatever like the Autobots were in the original cartoon, so that you'd see Megatron think, well, maybe the Autobots are dead. And then Megatron would be like, well, this world has energy, so we could harness the energy here and make Energon. And that's the reason why the war was going on Cybertron, is they were running out of energy because they basically sucked the planet dry. And it would have been because of Megatron was overcharging the planet and basically destroying the planet. So Autobots basically get vehicle forms, and then they wake up, and then they see Spike, Sparkplug, blah blah blah. They get to talking or whatever. Okay, you are the main beings on this planet that rule over the planet. So you guys are the intelligent beings. And then they basically become friends, blah, blah. And then Spike and Sparkplug are like, well, you know, you're crashing to the side of a mountain, so what are you going to do? And then have like Wheeljack basically come up with something to make a hologram so that the ship doesn't stand out, so no one can see it. And that would make it so that the government doesn't have to get involved like a Michael Bay movie. Because then the government would show up later and basically fly in, and they'd be looking for something, and then they fly over and they'd be like, there's nothing there. And then have like the government guy or whatever saying, the radars are just messed up. And then they basically that way you wouldn't have to deal with the government and the military all the time right away in the first episode or first movie or whatever, because I just don't want the military and all these people involved. I want to keep it like a closed little community type thing where the Autobots are working with Spike, Sparkplug, and it's a closed community. There's not a lot of government intervention, because we've gotten that in like just about all the Transformers movies. The humans are intervening in some way. I want the Transformers to be characters in their own movie. I want them to be the main thing, considering it's called Transformers. So then you'd see Megatron would basically start showing his face in some places of the world, and Optimus Prime, you know, looking over it on Teletran 1 would basically be like, hey, the Decepticons are on the Earth now, and they're starting to do stuff. So then I would say have the Autobots have a space bridge. I know in the original cartoon they didn't have a space bridge to just go wherever, and have them basically be able to drive through it like they did in Transformers Prime. And just go through that, and then they'd end up wherever they need to go quickly. So have them do that, and then basically there'd be a couple of battles between Megatron and Optimus Prime and the Autobots and stuff. But they'd be always in places where humans really don't get to see them. Like you'd have, in fact, you could have like a running joke in the movie where stuff is happening and some like gas station attendant or whatever kind of notices something's happening or whatever, and just when they get there in time, they're transformed, or the Decepticons have already left, and they get this feeling like, oh, I guess I was hearing things. Have it be like some kind of a joke or humor or whatever. That's what I would do, because I really want the idea to come across that these are robots in disguise, and I don't want the whole world to know about them, because like I said, I want to save that for like the third or fourth movie where they're coming out to the governments. I want it to start off kind of small and kind of ground level, not so total international stuff. But basically what it would be is Megatron's trying to get Energon and start manufacturing Energon and sending it to basically Shockwave on Cybertron. That's what I would have him do. So that's just one of my thoughts on how to do that. And there'd be, like I said, there'd be battles. In this movie, I would not have a combiner at all. No combiners in this movie. And size changing, that's something I probably wouldn't do either. I would think I'd make Megatron into a tank, but I wouldn't make him into like a green tank or a beige, like tan tank. I would make him into a silver tank. I would just have them scan like a military base where there's like a new tank that they're testing out, so that it's like not even painted yet. It's just a trial thing. And basically Megatron would scan that, and it's basically all silver with black treads and stuff and a little bit of red highlight in it, but that nothing like whatever. And I would basically have Megatron scan that, so he would just keep a silver tank. He would keep his silver. He wouldn't have any color. He'd be silver and black with some red highlights here and there. And then for the Decepticon, like the Seekers, I would do jets, but I would have them have the red on the chest, like for Starscream, and they would be the right colors. And then when they transform, you would see those colors in the right spots on the jet, like the toys. I would make them look like they actually do in the cartoon. And Soundwave, I would not have him be a cassette player, because like I said, I don't want size changes. I don't want Megatron turning into a pistol, because I want them to have the same mass of no matter what. So Soundwave would probably turn into some kind of a radar vehicle that the government's using, that's navy blue with some gray and some gold highlights on it, I guess. That's what I would do. And have that vehicle be able to launch drones, and I would have some of the drones be his cassettes, basically. And have them basically come out of the vehicle or out of him in the form of like a cassette type, boxy type of thing. So you still get that ejection thing. And then instantly they transform into whatever they are. But if they're going to do like Laserbeak would turn into like some kind of a drone, and then he would transform into his Laserbeak version, like the bird, and he would also turn into that boxy cassette type thing that comes out of him. That's how I would do it. I don't know. This is just my opinion, okay? I'm sure everyone has their own opinion, other ideas, but this is just what I thought. Optimus Prime would turn into a semi-truck just like the G1 cartoon, and all the characters would turn into what they turn into. There'd be even some jokes. Like in the Rise of the Beast movie, Mirage turns into basically Jazz, the car, and I think that's dumb. So I would have Mirage be here. He wouldn't be in the first movie. He wouldn't be like a main character. He'd be in the background. But near the end of the movie, you'd be like, because have some of the Autobots still scanning, like they're trying to feel it out, like which vehicles they want. And some of them be like pickier than others, and have that be like a joke, and have Mirage be like looking around the world, and he's like, man, I like these really fast race cars, whatever. And then have like somebody joking with them, but they're so low to the ground, and they're and it doesn't look like people are driving them on their day-to-day life, you know. Have some kind of a joke like that, and have him being so into it that he doesn't care and he transforms into it anyway. And then have, like, in the second movie, have him, like, transform into that, and like people like on the regular road looking at him like weird, and have police trying to pull him over all the time. Have that be like a comedy, I guess, that Mirage still turns into the Formula race car. And have that be like he's just too, but then he can turn invisible, and then he basically can get away every time. And it'd be like some kind of a joke or whatever. That the first movie, they'd be just basically fighting Megatron because Megatron's looking for Energon. The second movie, I would probably start having combiners. The second movie, I would probably have like Reflector. I don't know what he would. I can't tell you what I would do with that. I'd have them be in it though, and maybe they wouldn't transform. You just see them in the background, so it's like a nod to the Transformers original. I don't know. And then I think I'd start to have the Insecticons in the third movie, and the Dinobots in the third movie. But the second movie, I would probably, just because it's easier, I would probably go with the Constructicons, and I would probably just kind of use them as, you know, that they were already here on Earth, or I don't know. I don't know how I would do that. I'd have to think about that one. But that's just a thought. These are just some theories. I'm not going to go on too much longer because I think I already nailed this. I don't know. I'll talk about other movie ideas maybe some other time, because this is getting to be kind of a long video. But yeah, that's my thoughts on a Transformers movie. I just think that they could do so much with a G1 story. They could make it work in so many ways. And Spike and Sparkplug could go along. They could be humans, just like they have in all the other movies. They got human characters that they get along with the Autobots. So yeah, but I don't want to talk too much longer. This video is getting pretty long. So tell me what you think in the comment section below, and like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for watching.